Alright, we are now live on Usapang Musiko. And yeah, sorry for my messy hair. I need a haircut. Alright, so we are back again for another episode. And for today's episode, the topic is: does more lessons mean more progress? Yeah. So basically, just asking the question, if I get more lessons during the week in, do I really get to progress even more? Okay, this is quite relevant with the topic I just posted on Biden Tips and Tricks, where we talked about how a teacher could is not enough for a student to really reach whatever goals they may have, right? Because basically a teacher can only do so much from their perspective to be able to really effectively affect the way a student learns their craft, right? Well, yeah. So without further ado, let's talk about this major topic. Okay? Now, I think it's quite relevant because usually when we talk about lessons, we think that we learn most of the things that we need to during the time that we have lessons. But it's not really the case. Okay? So if you want to really be a good student, or if you want to really progress in anything that you do, you have to put in the work outside the lesson hours. Because during the lessons, that's the time you absorb the knowledge, the experience, and the expertise of the teacher or whoever's trying to give you the lessons, right? So it's not something that once you get that concept, buo na agad siya, or it's really whole within you. No? I like to use the term we have to digest. Digesting the, the techniques, digesting the topics that you talked about, digesting all the movements that you need to do in order for you to progress. So that's what you are doing after lessons. Now, for example, this has been, I think it's fairly normal, especially for people who have lessons during the summer. Example. Okay, why during the summer? Because especially for students, they don't have school. So a lot of teachers, a lot of parents think that sending their children to music lessons, no, almost on a daily basis would make that much more progress. No? But the thing is, again, we're not learning just theory. We have to learn how to apply certain techniques. But in order for you to apply those things, in order for you to really get the application in, it needs a lot of repetition, it needs a lot of work, it needs a lot of practice. Okay? I'm not trying to say that practice is the only way in order for you to improve, but it is a proven way for things to stick within you, right? Because through practice, through repetition, by doing it over and over, but not mindlessly, okay? Not mindlessly. You have to do it very, very, very mindful. Okay? What do we mean by mindful? You are actually thinking about the process, you're thinking about the techniques, everything that you're doing is being directed by yourself, okay? It's not something that, it will come out naturally, okay? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as an overnight success, especially when learning musical instruments. Because again, everything is calculated, everything is tinatantya, ika nga nila, no? It's not really exact that you can quantify it, but it's exact in a way that once you get it and you don't fail at it, it becomes normal, it becomes natural. So that's the thing about uh, applied, anything applied. No? The uses application. Okay? So the more you do it, the more repetitions you do it, no? As much as I don't like saying muscle memory, no, it kicks in. Your head you understand it better, so it becomes normal, no? And but that doesn't happen during your lessons, so it doesn't equate to more lessons will make you a better musician at a faster rate. Okay, so yeah, is it bad to have lessons regularly? Of course not. No, you have to have someone to be able to check on what you're doing. No, be able to check your form, be able to check your technique, but it should come in as a support rather than the whole thing. What do we mean by that? Diba? Uh, it should supplement what you are doing. It should not be the basis of your practice. It should not be the only basis of your techniques. No? Because that is spoon feeding. If you are being spoon fed, you're not gonna do anything about it. Diba? It would just be the teacher giving you everything that you need, and the teacher will be mixing it into you. And at the end of the day, it's just your teacher learning the same things or concepts. Diba? It won't translate to whatever we're trying to give you or whatever you're trying to do. Because, again, it's your teacher who's doing the work. So lessons aren't inherently bad. No, lessons are great. But to put in the thinking that lessons are the only way to make you better is not a good idea. Okay? So, what's the most optimal way to have lessons? No? For me personally, a weekly schedule, a weekly regimen, a weekly 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours of lessons, depending on your skill level, of course, will suffice. As long as after your lessons, whether that's the next day or I don't know, within the day, you could practice. No, it doesn't even have to be every day if you're starting out, but it has to be consistent. Okay, we can't really put in a timeline on anything because we learn uh, stuff differently from one another. No, even if you have like siblings who learn the same instruments, for example, you might learn it faster than your siblings, or your siblings might learn it faster than you, and that's okay. That's totally fine. You're not in competition with any other person but yourself. Okay, so yeah, I think even during summer days, kasi nga, parents feel like they need to send their children or their children to activities, but it gets them burnt out more than anything, and it just inhibits this culture to them that okay, hindi na lang ako practice, I won't practice because in the next lesson my teacher will correct me anyways. Or we will just go back to what happened last time that we had the lessons. For example, the what do you call this? The most common lesson schedule I've experienced is having 3 lessons in a week. So it's either Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. Okay, that's the most common lesson times. So 3 times a week, 1 hour uh, every lesson. So that's 3 hours. Sometimes it's good for some students, but it just gives them the opportunity to slack off. That's just how I see it. That's how it works for me. No, because they don't get to be accountable enough that they're excited to go back to the lesson because they learned something new, but instead they just relying on the lessons instead of learning it on their own, no? Because that's the main goal, to be able to play on your own. But since we have a ton of lessons every week, students will just be, oh, it's fine if I don't practice. I don't do anything about my instrument. The only time I'll hold my instrument is Mondays, Wednesdays, Friday. Because that's my lesson time. It's not good at all. It's actually pretty bad. I experienced this a lot when I was growing up. Uh, I personally don't remember that I had lessons like that. I think the most I had when I was growing up was like two or three, yeah, 1 or 2 times a week. Still, even if it was a summer vacation, because I still do a lot of other things when I was a kid. But when I was already teaching, I had experienced this with a lot of children, like 3 times a week. And if you ask them, did you practice? They'll be honest and tell you no. Magle-lesson din naman eh. So technically, what happens is 3 times a week lessons. Tuesdays, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays would be the rest days. So instead of ingesting whatever they picked up during Monday, you'll just be resting and forgetting it on Tuesday. And then when you get back on Wednesday, you'll be doing the same thing. So the progress is actually limiting. No? I think this is what we call in economics like the law of diminishing marginal returns. Like the more you give someone something, the less productive they become. No? Something like that. So this is what's happening. The more lessons that you give, it should equate, right? I mean, it should equate that to better performance. But again, if they rely so much on the lessons and not on the way to get to the process, that's where the problem arises. That's where the problems come up. Because again, the process is not going to stop inside the halls of a studio or inside the classroom or whatever setting it is. The process starts there because that's the where your teacher will correct you, where will give you tips or whatever uh, solutions to problems that you might be encountering. That's where you get it. But outside that lesson area, outside that lesson time, is where you actually nurture. That's where you train those steps, right? Like in math, diba? They give you a ton of problems to solve. It's practicing. You're practicing the problems. Sometimes you don't even end your practice inside the classroom. They give you homework. It's basically the same process over and over until you get not just the answers to the questions, but the solutions is what's important. And that's the same thing when you're learning any musical instrument. The way you solve that problem, the way you come up to how can you play this note, how could you play this tone, how do you make your sound more beautiful, how do you make it loud, how do you make it soft, those types of things matter. No, it's not just the end product. It's never about the end product when it comes to music. The end product is part of the process that gets you to be able to play whatever the piece you're trying to play, right? So, what is the optimal number of hours for lessons? Again, if this is not your career, I don't think you need more than 1 hour a week for lessons. This is not your career. Yeah? If this is your career, of course you'll get a lot more than that. No? Not because you want to, but just because you need to. Like for example, when I was in college, I would have 2 hours of lessons, and then that would be split into two days. My teacher would come in Mondays, but it's unofficially Monday. I mean, my lesson time is always a Wednesday, but my teacher comes in Mondays. He's always free at a certain time that I'm free as well. I'll go to his studio. We'll have a little bit of a chit chat, and then we'll have lessons. Just because I was there and no one else is coming in. So I would have lessons twice a week. That was the most that I needed. Okay, during that time. That was when I'm not really preparing for anything major. Like I wasn't preparing for a recital. I was just trying to learn. Okay? Because I was really hungry for knowledge. But the thing is, what I'm doing on a Monday, I'm still practicing right after. I still practice on that Tuesday, right? So when I come back on Wednesday, I still have something to present my teacher and still have room for more improvement, of course, because we always have more room for improvement. So that for me was optimal. No? It fit my schedule. I was able to get more work done. But again, I didn't push for 3 lessons a week. It's just too much for me. No? But yeah, if you could still see a little bit of progress and you are really diligently practicing, mindfully practicing, yeah, maybe you will reach a certain level when 1 hour of lessons is not enough. Because again, when you are more advanced, you're trying your pieces are like 1 hour long. And if you are trying to learn certain pieces, 1 hour long pieces, your lesson of 1 hour wouldn't even cover half of what you're trying to learn. So again, if this is your career, you can take more lessons. I don't think uh, people will disagree on that. Of course, you have to take as much in and be able to translate that into your performance. But if you are just studying this for a hobby, if you have kids that are trying to learn this, maybe have make a career out of it in the long run, you don't need to force them into lessons and lessons and lessons. As long as there's progress, constant progress going on, just keep them, uh, let's say, at an average pace. Because again, the reliance on lessons for progress should be a little bit low. Because again, uh, whatever age group you are in, it's not about just the lessons. It's about learning how to do it. Right? Learning how to do it on your own, being able to understand the concepts that you are being taught, and then applying it to yourself. That's the most important thing. No? Even for adult beginners, I don't really recommend going 2 or 3 lessons a week, especially if you're starting out. No, the thing about when you're starting out versus an advanced musician is that when you're starting out, the smallest things that may be easy for an advanced student will be really, really hard for you to get. No, that's one thing. So once you get the hang of it, maybe yeah, you could have more lessons. If kinakapos na talaga sa time. Like for example, if you're playing a repertoire of like 5 or 6 pieces, 5 or 6 songs that you need time to really work on. So maybe compress to, it's either having 2 hour lessons instead of having 2 days. Because you're trying to compress everything that you need to know in a day. Why? Because sleep is important. Yeah. But you're trying to compress everything that you need to learn in a week in one day. That's the main gist of what should happen in a lesson, right? Squeeze everything that you need in one day so that tomorrow, the next day, when you're practicing, you know exactly what you need to do. And then the next day, practice the same. No? It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And the thing about having fixed lesson days, fixed lesson days, lesson times, is that you have something to look forward to. Whether you're in setting a goal, you're able to say that, okay, by next week, I should be able to play this at this tempo, memorized in front of my teacher. That is something that you could actually do and make yourself a little bit more excited to go to your lessons instead of, you know, feeling down or something. Or, you know, yung para hindi ka tamarin. Okay? So you don't feel very, very lazy. Oh, what will I do? When will my next lesson be ba? So you have something to look forward to. Again, routines, building habits, these are the things that we try to not necessarily impose, but share to our students. Because at the end of the day, a teacher just wants their student to be able to learn, and to be able to play at a certain level that they want their students to achieve. No? At the end of the day, it's all for the students, not for the teachers. Maybe some teachers will get mad because they need the money for lessons, you know. Yeah, of course there's monetary value, you know. But yeah, I'm not inherently saying that it's bad to have 3 sessions in a week, as long as, again, we're going back to the reliance on that lesson. Like being able to hold on to that lesson na parang, this is the only thing that will make me great. This is the only thing that will make me progress. This is the only thing that would help me get to my goals. No, it's not. It's one part of the process that you need to understand. Of course, guidance is very, very important. The way your teacher tells you what you need to do and what not to do is important. But if you rely on lessons alone, that will lead you to a very bad experience, to be honest. No, you won't get to the level that you want to if you just rely on that lesson. No. So for example, if you're gonna take like a week, 1 week lesson, intensive crash course lessons, diba? And then you'll never take a lesson again. Do you think you will be able to play anything other than the piece that you're trying to learn? Of course not. Diba? So it's better if you paid for like 7 sessions, let's say 7 for a week, distribute that to 7 weeks. You get more out of it. No? Because again, your reliance on the lesson is the thing that will hinder your progress. Because it's not about your teacher, it's about you as a student. No? Whether you're young or old, you know, pursuing this a career or as a hobby, in order for you to get the progress that you want, you need to work for it. There's no shortcuts. There's no easy way. Because if you get it that easy, why would we need years and years and years of practice to get to that point, right? So that's one thing you have to remember, you know, as a musician. And maybe we could talk about other more relevant topics on another episode. All right. So let's wait if people have questions. Yeah, just wait a few moments for people to come in. Shout out to everyone watching. This will be live next Friday on Anchor and all major uh, podcast platforms. Okay. So I'm trying to speak in English, pero yeah, pwede naman tayo mag-Tagalog. But trying to speak in English for the wider audience that's trying to view these podcasts. Okay? Pero kung kailangan natin mag-Tagalog, why not? It's not like hindi pwede. Okay. Let's see. So we have a few people coming in watching. Hello, guys. So if you have any questions regarding the topic, or maybe not necessarily related to the topic, but more on your experience, you want to share something, we read it over here on our uh, ongoing podcast right now. So again, don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a lot of things that are going on. And you missed the first part. So basically, yeah, I talked about yung lessons are not inherently the most important thing. Uh, doesn't mean that you have more lessons in a week, you'll progress faster agad. But yeah, that could happen. But it's not a guarantee. It will always depend on the student. Uh, Lessons are there again as a solution. Your teachers are there to offer a solution to whatever problems you may face. And, you know, shelling out more time for lessons is really not a good idea. Yeah. My teacher has always taught me, parang sabi niya, paano pag wala ako sa tabi mo? What if I'm not on your side? Diba? So that's why you have to be able to pick up whatever your teachers are telling you. It doesn't even have to be that fast. With technology right now, diba? Pwede nyo naman i-record eh. You could record your lessons and be able to replay it. No? I remember some of my seniors, they were telling me that they also have these tape recorders, di pa uso nun yung CD or wala pa masyado sa phones, that they always bring during their lessons. Nare-record nila yung lessons. And if they hear something from their teacher, they just replay the lessons pag pauwi sila or whatever. So that's what they do. You could also write down on a notebook. Yeah? So when I was studying, I always have this music notebook. No? Actually, a small notebook and a pen to just write down whatever the teacher is trying to tell you about the piece. Or better yet, if you have a copy, a hard copy of a piece, photocopy it. That's the thing that you bring to your lessons para mas madaling makahan. No? Easily annotate your scores. Diba? And that's the thing. You have to digest that. Digest the knowledge that your teacher is trying to share with you. That's the most important thing. You have to digest first. Kasi even if your teacher is beside you 24/7, will you always rely on them? Diba? Ganun na lang. Again, our main goal is independence in order for you to play on your own. No? Being able to decipher what's right or wrong, what's good or bad, what's not optimal for you, or what's optimal for you. Those types of things. That's what we settle during lessons, right? We don't need to talk about, is this piece good or what? You know, at the end of the day, it's for the student to be able to do what they need to do on their own. Diba? That's why pag lesson, practicein mo. You practice this, memorize this. Next week, kung ano yung tinakal natin, that's what you need to present. Right? Just so I could see. No, personally, that's how I do it. No? So that I could see if you really learned something. Because if you learn something and you apply it to everything else that comes after that piece, no? For example, let's say we're focusing on legato strokes. No? So you're bowing, legato bowing, ganyan. So you play that on a certain piece. Let's say 3 months down the road, we encounter the same passage. No? Of course, you already know how to do it. So I don't need to teach you that again. But, of course, not all legato passages are the same. So we focus on other things that weren't on that previous piece. But we focus on the similarities that they already have. We don't need to work on them again. Kasi alam mo na. Diba? That's how important it is to be able to digest it. And it's not always, mag-lesson tayo isang buwan every day. Especially if you're just starting out, that would be literally hell. Because again, your teachers are much more experienced than you if you're starting out. Diba? And your ability to progress is slower. Slow. You start very, very slow when you're learning something new. And in 30 days, let's say in 30 days, mag-lesson ka 1 hour every day. Ganon. You still need to work. Even if you have 30-day lessons, let's say 1 month, buong isang buwan nag-lesson ka, you will still need to practice at least another hour on your own. Diba? So that you could just get whatever was taught with you in the lessons. So basically, that's already 60 hours of practice. Diba? Ganun din eh. This is just for me, no, personally. It's a little bit of a waste of resources, time, money, effort. Kasi gagawin mo rin naman eh. You're still gonna do it. It's better to have set intervals in your lessons. May it be, let's say twice a week, 3 times a week, yeah. But within those intervals, those times are not breaks. Okay? When you're not in class, those are not break days. Those are not rest days. Those are actually the days that matter. Right? Those are the days that will matter. The time away from your teacher. Those are the days that will give you the realization of whatever you're doing. Yeah? So those are more important than the lesson days. Of course, huwag nyo enjoy yung teacher nyo. Attend your lessons diligently. No? Mindfully. With 100% focus. And then, yeah. Just continue practicing right after. Ganun lang. It's that simple. Alright? Any other questions, guys? Shout out to Ria Jane Yulde. Maybe I'll entertain one more question, last question. I hope you learned something here, maybe help you out with scheduling. Of course, schedules are really, really important. If you really can put the schedule fit the schedule within whatever you're doing, it's gonna be hard. In whatever things that we do, diba? If we don't put in the time and effort to do those things, mas mahirapan tayo. It's gonna be harder for you to really learn anything. Like for example, I had this student. So the parents want their child to learn. This was a few years ago, I think. But the thing is, the only time the student holds on to his instrument was during our lessons. Literally, I would ask, when you go home, what do you do? I go to swimming practice. And then, I go to, I forgot the activities. She has a ton of activities every day. And I would ask, okay, so that's after our lesson. What about the next day? What do you do? Andun lang. Rest. So, technically, hindi na rin daw niya nilalabas sa car. So, his violin stays in the car and goes into my lesson room. Every time we have a lesson, it's the only time he picks up his instrument and plays. Yeah. I kind of know the answer, but for sake of discussion, does it help that you have a lot of teachers or you listen to different people regarding one technique? Okay, this is a nice question. Actually, it will vary depending on a lot of things. Like, number one, are the teachers that you have the same background or the same mindset with regards to learning? That's one thing. Another thing is, if your teachers have certain expertise that are different from each other. Okay? So those two things are important. So again, if your teachers have different backgrounds, that would be really hard for you. Okay, I think, my brother as a pianist experienced this as well. I think I've experienced this as well, where I had not necessarily two teachers, but two inputs that are quite different from each other. But the thing is, for example, if you have two teachers na magkaiba sila ng technique, you have to please both. So for example, nag-lesson ka dito sa isang teacher, you have to do this. And then if you're going for a lesson of the same piece to another teacher, you have to do this. So one piece, two interpretations. Parang ganun yung mangyayari. But if they have the same background, I think that would be helpful. But of course, having two inputs of different interpretations is also helpful as long as you know where to filter it out, which one to follow, which one is best for you. And if they allow that, that would be great. That would be better. Because we want to open ourselves, especially in music, that we have to understand, oh, ano ba yung, why do we do these things? Why is this important? Why is that important? Why is this better than that? So you have to weigh things out because it's always a gray area when you talk about interpretation, you talk about technique. There's no black and white answer, or there's no black and white solution for problems regarding music. No, there's always a different way that you can think of. Okay, now going to different expertise, this is where it gets better. Now, for example, if you have a teacher that's good in Mozart concertos, like that's his forte, do you play Mozart for them? Then you have another teacher that's good with Bach. Do you play your Bach for them? No, you're getting best of both worlds because they really have. If they have an expertise on certain repertoire, you're just getting the best out of them. No? I mean, they don't need to hear everything that you play because again, you're trying to focus on their expertise. Or if one teacher you have is good in chamber music, sonatas, ganyan, for example. And one is a jazz violinist, for example. So that's great for you. That's okay. That's okay. Let's say, oh, just to get this more relevant into the topic today. You have 4 days. One day you have lessons with one teacher with your, let's say, concerto. Another day with another teacher, Bach. Another day with another teacher, jazz. Another day with another teacher, pop. Oh, you're getting everything in. But again, at the end of the day, it's how you digest that, how you absorb that, how you apply that to your daily routines. How do you apply that in the way that you are playing? Yeah. Very dedicated. But yeah, actually, in other music schools, especially abroad, they have dedicated teachers for every type of repertoire, actually. So, siguro hindi naman ganun. Let's say, for example, your repertoire right now, o tumutugtog ka ng romantic concerto and Bach. So, you have two teachers for that. And then maybe a sonata. So, you have three. It's the same as, kumbaga sa college, parang iba-ibang subject. Because that's their expertise. Huh? But the preparation is always coming from you. Especially if you're a performance major, kailangan talaga lahat ng lahat ng styles maaral mo, and you know you be able to really learn. Sa atin kasi here in the Philippines, hindi siya masyado pang ganun ka in-depth. Like you will have a major teacher, one lang, no? And then the others are just subjects that basically sometimes you just meet them like once every 2 weeks, mga ganun. Sometimes once a month, but because it's a class, instead of having it one-on-one, you don't have enough time to really present like that. So for example, we had chamber music classes. It was like 7 or 8 weeks, but within those 7 to 8 weeks, the only time we really had a one-on-one with our mentor or professor was 1 week lang. 1 week, 1 hour was dedicated to our group. So, doon lang siya naglalaro. Not necessarily 8 weeks na extensive yung training. So, those types of things, mga ganun klase. So, having different teachers is good as long as they get along. Na, they should get along with it. Not necessarily they should not necessarily be friends, but they should get along with the way they teach you. So for example, kung may nakorek yung isa na ganito and effective naman, hindi na naman na kailangan siguro pansinin ng isa. Kasi nakorek na naman di ba? Parang kung okay na yon and it's effective, it gets the job done. Maybe not. Don't focus on that. Focus on other things that you think still needs improvement. No, it's just how you filter out what's good or bad. Because again, nothing is inherently good or bad when it comes to technique. When it comes to interpretation, it's really a big gray area that you have to understand. But it takes a lot of experience also to say that this is not good for me and this is not okay for me. But you will feel it naman. Whatever works best. No, not just whatever works. Kasi everything will work. But what works best? So, depending on the technique that you're trying to figure out or the interpretation trying to figure out, what sounds good for you, what sounds good for a lot more people, and what makes you feel less of a strain in your body. So those things pwede mo gamitin to consider. Right? That was a nice question. Thank you for asking that, Rio. You? Hopefully you have a lesson soon. Yeah? Pag di na busy. Anyway, yeah, I guess we could actually talk more about those types of topics as well. Maybe it needs its own episode. Maybe we'll see what types of things we could actually talk about. Hopefully, bring in more guests again to the show, no? As things are getting better. Yun, after the wedding, exciting. Yeah. But again, if you have questions, just send me a message. That would be fine for me. Anyway, I guess that would be it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Again, this will be live on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts next Friday. Because this Friday would be the previous episode, no, episode 41. So this one is episode 42. Again, we talked about does more lessons mean more progress? And if you want to listen to it again, yeah, you can continue to listen either here on YouTube. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on all my socials. Links down in the description box below. Check out all and my socials. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on TikTok as well. And check out my music on Spotify. Check out my course on Udemy. And I also have a blog that hopefully I get to writing again. And that's it for today. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day. This has been Ryan Manakil for Usapang Musiko, and I will see you again on the next one. Peace.